From losing hundreds of thousands of dollars over golf bets to millions of dollars in casinos, this is how Michael Jordan's gambling addiction has cost him a fortune. His basketball career and revolutionization of sneakers with his deal with Nike aside, Michael is also famous for his gambling exploits. In fact, it seems gambling has been a part of his life from his early years. It's evident from biographies that he was gambling as early as high school. There's even proof of his wagering in college, like a $5 check that he wrote in 1982 to a student after he lost a pool game. And as we all know, his little hobby continued well into his adult life.
Got an all-in showdown now. We've got two kings against an ace-9.
By the time he started his career in the NBA, he wasn't betting little amounts any longer. In 1992, Michael was selected for the Olympics.
Michael Jordan's the only player that could ever turn it on and off, and he never freaking turned it off.
Jordan, look at that!
And not long after his return, he got caught up in a gambling controversy the next year. In February of 1993, he had to testify over a $57,000 check to James Slim Boulder. James was a gambler and an alleged drug dealer and was sentenced to 9 years by the courts due to money laundering. At first, Michael had claimed that the check was a business loan, but later on, he admitted that it was a debt that he got from betting on games on the golf course. Another one of his golfing partners also accused him of owing him $1.3 million, but later on settled for $300,000. All of these allegations resulted in lots of controversies involving Michael's gambling addiction. In fact, people even connected it to his father's murder. His father's death took place only a few weeks after his gambling cases. This is likely the reason that so many rumors started showing up in connection to these two events. But at the end of the day, this myth has been disproved tons of times, and the murder was actually a random attack. Despite this, when he first retired, it only added fuel to the fire, and the rumors flared up even more. Not to mention, there was even speculation that the real reason Michael was retiring was that he was suspended because of his gambling addiction. Of course, the real reason was that he was emotionally drained after his father's passing. I mean, the notion of the NBA secretly suspending its most important player and brand is absurd, to say the least. Former NBA Commissioner David Stern denied all the rumors, saying Michael didn't do anything wrong and that he resented any implications that said otherwise. And so Michael's gambling problem continued.
I'm happy to be here, and every time I've done anything for him, it's always been, first class, and, I've had a good time no matter what I've done.
Well into his retirement as well. In 1996, after he bounced checks worth $1.2 million from the Golden Nugget Casino, he ended up having to pay a settlement of $5 million. Sheesh, perhaps he should have been more diligent in paying back his debts. After all, he wasn't exactly short on money, but it doesn't stop there. Reportedly, he lost $1.25 million in just one night while gambling at Connecticut Casino back in 2006. It seems like luck just isn't on his side when it comes to casinos. Well, what's interesting is that Michael's relationship with betting got deeper after he became the owner of the Charlotte Hornets. The league has signed many multi-year partnerships with a number of sports books. Nowadays, teams have got retail facilities inside the arenas, and betting isn't considered taboo like before. Michael became an investor in DraftKings in 2020, but ultimately, Michael's gambling can be considered more of an addiction to victory than it is to laying wagers. This can be seen in his bet with Chris Paul at one of his summer camps for children. When Michael was visiting, he made a bet with Chris that if he missed 3 shots, he'd pay for new Air Jordans for all the people attending the camp. Of course, Michael didn't miss a single shot. He wasn't worried about the situation. He simply loved to win. Now, people have strong opinions on whether Michael's love for gambling is an addiction or not, but let's hear Michael's thoughts on the matter. Well, as you'd expect, Michael doesn't consider it an addiction at all. Michael was once asked if gambling was his way of getting to enjoy a thrill now that he's retired from the NBA. Michael actually admitted this to be true, saying that gambling was like nearing a cliff and calculating one's options. Despite this, he insisted that he wasn't addicted to gambling and dismissed any people's claims who said otherwise. Michael explained that what he really enjoyed was the thrill of nerve-wracking situations and admitted that he wouldn't enjoy safe bets like the majority of people did. He said that if he was sitting at a card game and there was an opportunity to double the stakes, he'd do it in a heartbeat. He even took a shot at people who criticized his habit, saying that he didn't look at it like it was his last dollar and that he needed to make two, he continued that other people who looked at it that way were throwing a jab at him. But is it really all just fun and games for Michael? He says he isn't addicted, but he seems to spend an alarming amount of money on his hobby. Apparently, he lost $1.5 million while gambling in Atlantic City in 2009. Of course, it didn't stop there though. A year later, he was sued by a casino for an unpaid debt of $822,000. But perhaps his biggest record would be when he lost somewhere between $5 and $10 million while he was gambling in Florida in 2013. Now, we already know Michael has a bit of a history of being late with paying his debts, but it seems that's not all. Apparently, he hasn't always played fair in his bets. Michael was known to play with the high rollers in the Bulls camp. He even had a rolling bet with the employees at the Chicago Stadium. He'd bet on the Jumbotron races before game day, and he wasn't afraid of a little foul either. He would always be told the result of the Jumbotron races in advance by the event staff. There's also another story about his bet-rigging shenanigans. This happened when the Bulls were heading to Portland. After leaving the plane, the players were waiting for their luggage when Michael bet $100 that his bag would come out first. Many of his teammates took him up on the offer, and it ended with MJ laughing while his bag rolled out first. He ended up taking the money but didn't tell the Chicago players that he'd bribed the baggage handler to send his bag out first. Michael placing bets was a common sight in the Bulls clubhouse, and he frequently betted on his teammates' high rollers table. Many of his bets even became part of some of his most iconic moments. An example of this is when he shrugged after scoring his sixth three-pointer of the first quarter in the NBA Finals Game 1 of 1992.
And here comes Michael, like pushing me back on the floor, wanting to play a little one-on-one, wanting to see where his game was. I was better than he was for about 2 weeks.
Many fans thought that he was simply showing off his extraordinary skill, but he was in fact shrugging at Magic Johnson in the crowd. Apparently, Magic had beaten him at cards the night prior. Well, no matter where he was, Michael always had time for gambling. When he was chosen to be part of the Dream Team for the 1992 Olympics, he built a rolling late-night card game. Huge basketball stars like Charles Barkley, Patrick Ewing, and Magic Johnson participated in that game. Well, this is all for how Michael Jordan has spent millions of dollars on his gambling addiction.
You mentioned, Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. Those guys all have to do with really excellence. Be fun to see KG too.
Go straight to the airport, boom. They don't hear and see Dennis for 48 hours.
I'll let him shoot. What was your call on that last play?
I have only $20 left.
The inbounds pass comes into Jordan. Here's Michael at the foul line. A shot on Elo. Good! The Bulls win! They win!
Ooh, they going at it.
And this is a great event, man. I hope they have it every year. And
I know he's gonna call.
One of the articles I read, they called it the Bulls Traveling Cocaine Circus.